Disturbing true home alone stories. Being home alone is often a time to relax and unwind. However, for some, it has turned into a harrowing experience that lingers in their minds forever. The following true stories recount the unsettling and chilling events that took place when individuals found themselves alone at home. The unseen intruder. Sarah, a college student, was living in a small off-campus apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It was a Saturday evening, and her roommates had gone home for the weekend. She decided to spend the night catching up on her favorite TV shows. Around 10 p.m., Sarah started hearing faint noises, like faint footsteps, coming from the attic. At first, she brushed it off, thinking it could be the building settling or a stray animal. But the noises became more pronounced and consistent. She decided to investigate, grabbing a flashlight for reassurance. As she opened the attic door, she felt a chill run down her spine. The noises stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence. Mustering courage, she climbed up the creaky stairs and pointed her flashlight around the dimly lit attic. To her horror, she noticed a dusty sleeping bag, a half-eaten sandwich, and a few personal items that didn't belong to her or her roommates. Realizing someone had been living in her attic, she immediately ran downstairs and called the police. Aftermath. The police found evidence that someone had been sneaking in and out of the attic through a small, hidden door that led to the outside. They suspected it was a homeless individual who had been living there for weeks. Although the intruder was never caught, Sarah moved out shortly after, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. The silent caller. Mark, a single father, had left his 13-year-old daughter, Lily, home alone for the first time while he attended a late-night work meeting. They lived in a suburban neighborhood with friendly neighbors, so he felt comfortable leaving her for a few hours. The incident. Around 9 p.m., Lily's phone rang. It was an unknown number. When she answered, a deep, raspy voice whispered, "I'm watching you." Thinking it was a prank call, she hung up and didn't think much of it. However, the calls continued, each time with more sinister messages describing what she was wearing or what she was doing at that exact moment. Terrified, Lily locked all the doors and windows and called her father. Mark told her to stay on the line while he contacted the police. Minutes felt like hours as Lily sat in her room, trembling. Suddenly, she heard loud banging on the front door. She screamed, but no one entered. The police arrived shortly after, but the caller was gone. Aftermath. Investigators traced the calls to a disposable phone, making it nearly impossible to identify the culprit. Mark installed a state-of-the-art security system and never left Lily home alone again. The incident left her traumatized and hyper-vigilant about her surroundings. The shadow in the window. Emily, a 25-year-old nurse, was accustomed to working night shifts. One evening, she decided to take a rare night off to relax at home. She lived in a quaint house at the edge of town, surrounded by woods. While reading a book in her living room, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of unease, as if she were being watched. She glanced at the window and saw nothing. Trying to brush it off, she returned to her book. Moments later, she heard the distinct sound of someone tapping on the glass. Her heart raced as she peered out into the darkness. But again, she saw nothing. Convinced she was imagining things, she tried to ignore it, but the tapping grew louder and more frequent. Emily grabbed her phone to call the police, but before she could dial, she noticed a shadowy figure standing by the tree line. The figure seemed to be staring directly at her. Panicked, she locked herself in her bedroom and waited for the police. When they arrived, the figure was gone, but they found footprints leading up to her window and around the house. The officers speculated it could have been a stalker or someone attempting to break in. Aftermath. Emily installed motion sensor lights and cameras around her property. Though she never saw the shadowy figure again, the experience left her paranoid and fearful of being alone at night. Common threads and precautions. These stories highlight how quickly a seemingly safe environment can become a nightmare. Here are some safety tips to consider when you're home alone. Install a security system. A home alarm system with cameras can deter potential intruders and provide peace of mind. Be aware of your surroundings. Pay attention to unusual noises or activity, especially if you live in a remote area. Lock all doors and windows. Even if you live in a safe neighborhood, always secure entry points. Have emergency contacts ready. Keep a list of emergency numbers easily accessible. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Call for help and ensure your safety. Being home alone can be a peaceful experience, but it's crucial to remain vigilant. These real-life accounts remind us that danger can arise when we least expect it. Stay alert, stay safe, and always trust your instincts to protect yourself and your loved ones. True, unnerving new house horror stories. Buying or moving into a new house is often seen as a fresh start, a symbol of hope, comfort, and a place to create lasting memories. However, for some, the experience takes a sinister turn, turning their dream homes into nightmares. These 3 real-life stories showcase how moving into a new house can sometimes be more terrifying than anyone could imagine. The Basement Secret. When the Martinez family purchased a beautiful colonial-style home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, they were overjoyed. The house was spacious, the garden was lush, and the basement was advertised as an additional bonus space perfect for storage or a future rec room. What they didn't know was that the basement held a dark secret, the discovery. During their first week in the house, their teenage son, Alex, decided to explore the basement. While rearranging old furniture left by the previous owner, he stumbled upon a trapdoor concealed beneath a worn-out rug. Beneath the door was a hidden room, barely large enough for a person to lie down in. What was truly disturbing was the state of the room. It was lined with soundproofing foam and chains were bolted to the walls. The family's unease grew when Alex found a notebook filled with disturbing sketches and phrases like "never escape" and "always watching." Though they reported the find to the local authorities, no conclusive evidence about the room's purpose or its previous occupant ever came to light. The haunting. Soon after, strange occurrences began. The sound of chains rattling echoed at night, and they often felt as though someone was watching them. Mrs. Martinez reported waking up to the sensation of cold hands gripping her ankles. Despite multiple efforts to cleanse the house spiritually and physically, the sense of dread never lifted. The family eventually sold the house at a loss and moved away, leaving the mystery of the basement's past unresolved. The portraits that changed. When Sarah, a young artist, moved into a historic Victorian house, she was enchanted by its charm. The house had been in disrepair for years, but she saw potential. One of the most captivating features was the collection of antique portraits left hanging on the walls by the previous owner. Although eerie, Sarah decided to keep them up, believing they added character to the house. The change. A week into her stay, Sarah noticed something strange. One of the portraits, a stern-looking woman in a dark dress, seemed to have shifted her gaze, dismissing it as her imagination. Sarah went about her day. However, the next morning, the woman's expression had changed entirely. Her lips, which were tightly pursed before, now curled into a faint, unsettling smile. The descent. Sarah's fascination turned to fear when she started hearing whispers at night. The whispers seemed to come from the very walls where the portraits hung. She tried moving the paintings to the attic, but that only made things worse. The attic door would swing open on its own, and the paintings would be found back in their original spots. After months of sleepless nights and escalating terror, Sarah uncovered the house's history. It had once belonged to a family who mysteriously disappeared in the 1920s. Locals whispered that the mother, who bore an uncanny resemblance to the woman in the portrait, had gone mad and cursed the house before vanishing. Convinced she was in danger, Sarah fled, leaving behind her dream home and her belongings. The locked room. For newlyweds James and Mia, their new home represented the start of their life together. It was a charming 2-story house with a picket fence and a garden perfect for Mia's love of gardening. However, there was one oddity. A single room upstairs was locked, with no key to be found. The curiosity. James, a handyman, tried to pick the lock but was unsuccessful. They contacted the previous owner, who seemed evasive about the room, simply saying, "It's better left alone." Unsettled but determined, James eventually broke the lock to discover what lay behind the door. The room was almost entirely empty except for a single wooden chair placed in the center and scratch marks etched into the floorboards. The scratches formed what appeared to be a spiral pattern, and in the center was a faint burn mark. The nightmare. That night, James and Mia were awakened by a loud banging sound. When they investigated, they found the door to the locked room wide open, even though they had closed it earlier. The chair was no longer in the center, but pushed against the wall. Over the next few weeks, their experiences grew more terrifying. Mia often heard faint humming from upstairs, and James began waking up with inexplicable bruises on his arms and legs. They brought in a paranormal investigator who revealed that the spiral markings were part of an old ritual meant to summon and bind spirits. Though they tried to cleanse the house, the activity only intensified. Desperate and terrified, James and Mia moved out, leaving the house vacant. The property remains unsold to this day, with its dark reputation keeping buyers at bay. These stories serve as chilling reminders that not all homes are merely structures of wood and stone. Some carry with them the echoes of the past, secrets hidden in their walls, and energies that refuse to be ignored. Whether you're buying your first home or your 10th, tread carefully. Sometimes the house chooses you, not the other way around.